Hey book lovers! Today, we're diving into Kristin Hannah's powerful novel, The Women, a gripping tale that shines a light on the unsung heroines of the Vietnam War. Whether you're a longtime Hannah fan or new to her work, this video has something for everyone. We'll start with a general overview of the book, followed by a spoiler-free summary for those of you still deciding whether to pick it up. If you're just looking for a quick preview, you can stop after that section. But if you've already read the book, or don't mind spoilers, stick around. We'll then move into a detailed review, discussing the book's strengths and weaknesses. Finally, for those who want to relive the journey or need a refresher, we'll conclude with a comprehensive plot summary. So, grab a cup of coffee, get comfortable, and let's explore the harrowing yet inspiring world of The Women. Kristin Hannah's latest novel, The Women, is a gripping historical fiction that transports readers to the tumultuous era of the Vietnam War. This powerful story follows the journey of Frankie McGrath, a young woman who volunteers as an army nurse in Vietnam, challenging societal norms and facing the harsh realities of war. The book explores themes of courage, sacrifice, and the often overlooked contributions of women during wartime. Hannah masterfully weaves together personal struggles with broader historical events, creating a narrative that is both intimate and sweeping in scope. Since its release in early 2024, The Women has garnered significant acclaim. It quickly became a New York Times bestseller, continuing Hannah's track record of commercial success. The novel has resonated with readers who appreciate well-researched historical fiction and stories of female empowerment. While appealing to a broad audience, The Women particularly targets adult readers interested in historical fiction, women's stories, and explorations of the Vietnam War era. Hannah's established fan base, who have enjoyed her previous works like The Nightingale and The Four Winds, will likely find this new offering equally compelling. With its blend of historical detail and emotional depth, The Women stands as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the untold stories of those who served in Vietnam. In The Women, best-selling author Kristin Hannah takes us on a powerful journey through one of America's most turbulent periods, the Vietnam War. But this isn't just another war story. Hannah shines a light on the often overlooked heroes of this conflict, the women who served as nurses on the front lines. Our story centers on Frankie McGrath, a young woman from a traditional California family. In 1966, Frankie's life seemed set on a predictable path: college, marriage, and a comfortable suburban existence. But when her brother ships out to Vietnam, Frankie's world is turned upside down. Inspired by a desire to make a difference and challenge societal expectations, she makes a decision that will alter the course of her life forever. She volunteers as an army nurse in Vietnam. As Frankie arrives in country, she's immediately thrust into a world for which no training could have prepared her. The steamy jungles of Vietnam are a far cry from the sunny beaches of California. Here, amid the chaos and brutality of war, Frankie must quickly learn to navigate not just her medical duties, but also the complex dynamics of the base, the ever-present danger, and her own evolving understanding of the conflict. Hannah's vivid prose brings the setting to life, from the oppressive heat and humidity to the constant sound of helicopters and distant explosions. Through Frankie's eyes, we experience the adrenaline-fueled intensity of working in a combat hospital, where split-second decisions can mean the difference between life and death. But The Women is more than just a war story. It's a tale of friendship, as Frankie forms unbreakable bonds with her fellow nurses. These women, from diverse backgrounds across America, become her lifeline in the face of daily trauma and loss. Together, They face the challenges of being women in a male-dominated war zone, fighting not just for their patients, but for respect and recognition. As the war progresses, we see Frankie grow from a naive young woman into a skilled nurse and a strong, resilient individual. Her experiences in Vietnam shape her in profound ways, challenging her perceptions of herself, her country, and the nature of war itself. Hannah doesn't shy away from the darker aspects of the conflict. Through Frankie's journey, we confront the moral complexities of the Vietnam War, the toll it takes on both soldiers and civilians, and the mixed reception that awaits veterans upon their return home. The Women also explores the impact of the war on the home front. We see how Frankie's choices affect her family relationships, particularly with her parents, who struggle to understand their daughter's decision to put herself in harm's way. As the novel progresses, Frankie must grapple with love, loss, and the harsh realities of war. Her experiences in Vietnam will forever change her, leaving her to question where she truly belongs when the conflict finally comes to an end. Kristin Hannah's meticulous research shines through in the rich historical detail, painting a vivid picture of both 1960s America and war-torn Vietnam. While the story is fictional, it's inspired by the real experiences of the brave women who served as nurses in Vietnam. The Women is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and a long-overdue tribute to the women who risked everything to serve their country. It's a story of courage, sacrifice, and the enduring power of friendship forged in the crucible of war. This poignant novel reminds us that history is not just made on battlefields or in political arenas, but also in the hearts and actions of ordinary people who rise to meet extraordinary challenges. Through Frankie's eyes, we gain a new perspective on a controversial chapter of American history and the unsung heroes who lived through it. The Women is more than just a book. It's an experience, one that will stay with you long after you've turned the final page. Kristin Hannah's The Women is a compelling addition to the historical fiction genre, focusing on the often overlooked experiences of female nurses during the Vietnam War. Let's break down the strengths and weaknesses of this novel. First, the strengths. Hannah's writing style shines in her ability to create vivid, immersive settings. The jungles of Vietnam and the chaos of field hospitals come alive through her prose, allowing readers to feel the humidity, hear the constant thrum of helicopters, and sense the ever-present danger. Character development is another strong point. The protagonist, Frankie McGrath, undergoes significant growth throughout the story. We see her transform from a naive young woman to a seasoned, albeit scarred, veteran. The supporting cast of fellow nurses is well drawn, each with distinct personalities that complement and contrast with Frankie's. The novel excels in its portrayal of the complexities of war. Hannah doesn't shy away from the moral ambiguities and the toll of conflict on both soldiers and civilians. This nuanced approach adds depth to the narrative and avoids simplistic portrayals of good and evil. However, the book is not without its weaknesses. The pacing can be uneven at times. While the Vietnam sections are taut and engaging, the pre-war and post-war chapters occasionally drag, potentially testing the reader's patience. Some readers might find the romantic subplot predictable, following familiar patterns seen in other wartime romances. This aspect of the story, while providing emotional resonance, doesn't break new ground. Additionally, while Hannah's research is evident, there are moments where the historical details feel more like exposition than organic parts of the narrative. This can occasionally pull the reader out of the story. In terms of plot execution, Hannah manages to maintain tension throughout most of the novel. However, some plot threads are left somewhat unresolved, which may frustrate readers looking for more concrete closure. For comparison, readers might consider other books in a similar vein. The Alice Network by Kate Quinn is another historical novel featuring strong women in wartime. The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien is a classic of Vietnam War literature that shares Hannah's unflinching look at the conflict. The Nightingale, also by Kristin Hannah, similarly explores women's roles during wartime, but set in World War II France. Matterhorn by Karl Marlantes for a more combat-focused but equally intense portrayal of the Vietnam War. Overall, The Women is a solid entry in Hannah's bibliography and in the historical fiction genre. It successfully brings attention to an underexplored aspect of the Vietnam War while delivering an emotionally resonant story. Despite some pacing issues and familiar tropes, the strong character work and vivid setting make it a worthwhile read for fans of historical fiction and those interested in women's experiences during wartime. Part 1. Before. Chapters 1 to 3. The Home Front. The story opens in the summer of 1966 in Point Reyes, California. We're introduced to Frankie McGrath, a 20-year-old college student from a traditional, middle-class family. The McGraths are preparing for a going-away party for Frankie's older brother, Finley, who's shipping out to Vietnam. During the party, we see Frankie's admiration for her brother and her sense of inadequacy in comparison. Finley is the family golden boy, smart, athletic, and now answering the call to serve his country. Frankie, on the other hand, feels directionless and unfulfilled. As Finley leaves, we witness the family's emotional goodbye. Frankie's mother, Kate, is particularly distraught, clinging to Finley until the last moment. This scene sets up the strong maternal attachment that will later clash with Frankie's decisions. In the weeks following Finley's departure, we see Frankie struggling with her mundane life. She's uninspired by her college courses and frustrated by her mother's constant attempts to set her up with suitable young men. There's a growing sense of restlessness in Frankie, a feeling that she's meant for something more than the conventional path laid out for her. Chapters 4 to 6. The Decision. Frankie begins receiving letters from Finley. Initially upbeat, they gradually reveal the harsh realities of the war. Finley writes about the challenging conditions, the constant danger, and the emotional toll of combat. These letters serve as a catalyst for Frankie, igniting a desire to contribute meaningfully to the war effort. After much internal struggle and research, Frankie makes the shocking decision to drop out of college and enlist as an Army nurse. This decision is met with disbelief and opposition from her family, especially her mother. Kate cannot understand why Frankie would choose to put herself in danger, leading to heated arguments that strain their relationship. Despite the family tension, Frankie follows through with her plan. We see her go through nursing school and basic training, a montage of challenges that test her resolve but ultimately strengthen her determination. As this section closes, Frankie is preparing to ship out to Vietnam, a mix of excitement and trepidation for what lies ahead. Part 2. During. Chapters 7 to 9. Arrival in Vietnam. In early 1967, Frankie arrives in Vietnam. The author vividly describes the assault on Frankie's senses, the oppressive heat, the constant noise of helicopters and distant explosions, the unfamiliar smells. Frankie is immediately overwhelmed, questioning her decision as she's transported to the 91st Evac Hospital in Chu Lai. At the hospital, Frankie meets her fellow nurses, Barbara "Barb" Anderson, a tough, experienced nurse from New York, Ethel Washington, a motherly figure who takes new nurses under her wing, and Ginger Gallagher, a kind-hearted nurse from the Midwest who becomes Frankie's closest friend. Frankie's first days are a brutal initiation. She's confronted with gruesome injuries unlike anything she saw in training. The pace is relentless, with choppers constantly bringing in new casualties. Frankie struggles to keep up, making mistakes that shake her confidence. But she's also driven by a growing sense of purpose, feeling for the first time that she's truly needed. Chapters 10 to 12. Adjustment and Bonds. As weeks pass, we see Frankie slowly adjusting to life in Vietnam. She becomes more confident in her nursing skills, learning to work efficiently under pressure. The bonds between Frankie and her fellow nurses deepen. They spend their off hours together, sharing stories from home, supporting each other through difficult days, and finding moments of laughter amidst the chaos. During this time, Frankie meets Rai, a charismatic Huey helicopter pilot. There's an immediate attraction, but Frankie is hesitant to get involved, aware of the transient nature of relationships in a war zone. However, Rai's persistent charm begins to wear down her defenses. We also see Frankie grappling with the broader implications of the war. Through interactions with longer-serving personnel and glimpses of the conflict's impact on Vietnamese civilians, Frankie's understanding of the war becomes more complex and nuanced. Chapters 13 to 15. The Tet Offensive. The narrative reaches a crescendo with the beginning of the Tet Offensive in January 1968. The hospital is inundated with casualties, pushing Frankie and her colleagues to their limits. Hannah describes in vivid detail the nonstop surgeries, the difficult triage decisions, and the emotional toll of losing patients despite their best efforts. During this intense period, the bonds between the nurses are solidified. They work in seamless coordination, supporting each other through exhaustion and emotional breakdown. Frankie finds reserves of strength she didn't know she possessed, working for days with minimal sleep. Amidst the chaos, Frankie receives word that Finley has been injured and is being sent home. This news brings the war even closer to home for Frankie, intensifying her commitment to her work. The relationship between Frankie and Rai also deepens during this time. In stolen moments between shifts, they find comfort in each other. However, the intensity of their situation creates a constant undercurrent of fear. Fear of loss, fear of the future, fear of becoming too attached in such an uncertain environment. Chapters 16 to 18. Forward Surgical Hospital. Frankie faces her biggest challenge, yet when she's assigned to a forward surgical hospital closer to the front lines. The conditions here are even more primitive than at the 91st, and the danger is more immediate. Frankie is forced to work with less equipment and support, often making life-or-death decisions on her own. This section provides a stark look at the frontline realities of the war. Frankie witnesses combat firsthand, treating soldiers fresh from the battlefield and sometimes enduring enemy fire. These experiences force her to confront the moral ambiguities of the war in a way she hadn't before. During her time at the forward hospital, Frankie also has more interaction with Vietnamese civilians, including children injured in the conflict. These encounters add another layer of complexity to her understanding of the war and its impact. Chapters 19 to 21. Loss and Growth. Back at the 91st, Frankie finds herself taking on a mentorship role with newer nurses, mirroring the way Barb and Ethel helped her when she first arrived. This shift in dynamics highlights Frankie's growth and the depth of experience she's gained. The narrative takes a tragic turn when Ginger is killed during a surprise attack on the base. This loss devastates the tight-knit group of friends and brings home the constant danger they face. Frankie struggles with grief and a renewed sense of the war's senseless destruction. In the aftermath of Ginger's death, we see how each character copes differently with loss and the ongoing stress of their situation. Some turn to gallows humor, others to increased focus on their work, while some, like Frankie, grapple with periods of doubt and despair. Chapters 22 to 24, Tour's End. As Frankie's tour of duty nears its end, she experiences a complex mix of emotions. There's relief at the prospect of leaving the danger and trauma behind, but also anxiety about returning to a world that may not understand her experiences. She worries about abandoning her patients and colleagues, feeling a deep sense of responsibility and connection to her work in Vietnam. Frankie's last days in country are a whirlwind of goodbyes. Her parting with WWII is particularly poignant. They make no promises, both aware of the challenges of maintaining their relationship outside the intense crucible of war. As Frankie boards the plane home, she reflects on the profound ways she's changed. She's no longer the naive young woman who arrived a year ago, but a seasoned veteran carrying both physical and emotional scars of her experiences. Part 3, After, Chapters 25 to 27, Homecoming. Frankie returns to a United States that's very different from the one she left. The anti-war movement has gained significant momentum, and returning veterans often face hostility or indifference. Frankie struggles with culture shock, finding everyday civilian concerns trivial compared to her experiences in Vietnam. Her homecoming is further complicated by strained family dynamics. Her parents, especially her mother, struggle to understand the changed woman who's returned to them. Frankie finds it difficult to communicate her experiences, creating a barrier between her and her loved ones. We also learn more about Finley's struggles. Now back home, he's dealing with physical injuries and PTSD. Frankie finds some solace in her shared experiences with her brother, but also feels guilt that she emerged physically unscathed while he bears visible scars of the war. Chapters 28 to 30, Readjustment Struggles. Frankie's attempts to readjust to civilian life are fraught with challenges. She moves out of her family home, seeking independence, but also distance from the constant reminders of how she's changed. She struggles to find purpose in everyday activities, missing the intensity and clear mission of her work in Vietnam. Her relationship with her parents, particularly her mother, remains strained. Kate still can't fully accept the choices Frankie has made, leading to tense interactions and unresolved conflicts. Frankie maintains contact with some of her fellow nurses, finding comfort in their shared experiences. These friendships become a lifeline as she navigates her new reality. She also attempts to reconnect with Rai, but finds that their relationship doesn't translate well to peacetime. The intensity that drew them together in Vietnam becomes a barrier in the mundane world of civilian life. Chapters 31 to 33, Finding Purpose. As time passes, we see Frankie slowly beginning to heal and find her footing in her post-war life. She becomes involved in veterans' causes, particularly advocating for recognition of women's contributions to the war effort. This work gives her a sense of purpose and allows her to use her experiences in a meaningful way. Frankie also works on repairing her relationship with her family. She and Finley grow closer, bonding over their shared experiences and supporting each other through their struggles with PTSD. Her relationship with her parents slowly improves as they come to understand and respect the woman Frankie has become. In these chapters, we also see Frankie grappling with long-term effects of her war experiences. She deals with nightmares, anxiety, and periods of depression. However, she also discovers strengths she didn't know she had, drawing on the resilience she developed in Vietnam to face these new challenges. Chapters 34 to 36, The Memorial. Years later, Frankie visits the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C. This powerful scene serves as a catharsis for Frankie, allowing her to confront lingering trauma and grief. As she traces the names on the wall, memories of patients she couldn't save and friends she lost come flooding back. At the memorial, Frankie reunites with some of her old nursing colleagues. Together, they share memories, both painful and fond. They reflect on their experiences, remember those they lost, and take pride in their service. This reunion highlights the enduring bonds formed in the crucible of war. The memorial visit also symbolizes a turning point for Frankie. While the experience is emotionally challenging, it also brings a sense of closure. Frankie realizes that while the war will always be a part of her, it no longer defines her entire identity. Epilogue, reflection, and peace. The story concludes with Frankie in the present day. She's built a fulfilling life, balancing a successful career with meaningful personal relationships. While the scars of her war experience remain, she's found ways to integrate those experiences into a rich and purposeful life. Frankie reflects on how her time in Vietnam shaped her, acknowledging both the trauma and the strength it gave her. She feels a sense of pride in the contributions she and her fellow nurses made, satisfied that their stories are finally being recognized as an important part of the war's history. The novel ends on a note of hard-won peace and resilience. Frankie recognizes that while the impacts of war never fully fade, she's found strength in her experiences and in the enduring bonds she formed. Her journey serves as a testament to the often overlooked role of women in war and the lasting impact of their service. And there you have it, folks, a deep dive into Kristin Hannah's The Women. From the sun-drenched shores of California to the steamy jungles of Vietnam, this novel takes us on an unforgettable journey through one of America's most turbulent periods. Hannah's powerful storytelling reminds us of the often overlooked contributions of women during wartime, while also exploring themes of personal growth, sacrifice, and the enduring power of friendship. Whether you're a history buff, a fan of women's fiction, or simply someone who appreciates a well-crafted story, The Women offers something for everyone. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your fellow book lovers. Your support helps us continue creating content like this. Have you read The Women? What did you think? Let us know in the comments below. And if you have suggestions for other books you'd like us to cover, we're all ears. Thanks for watching, and until next time, keep reading, keep dreaming, and keep exploring new worlds through books. See you in the next video.